Mallikarjun, we are not able to hear you. Can you unmute and?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Right. So probably, yeah, Rafiq also told the same thing. It was on a mute, right? Let me come again. What was, give me a second here. Right. Right. So first of all, like, welcome to everyone for this database administration workshop. The basic idea why I'm calling this as a administration workshop, because whatever the topic we're going to demonstrate here, each and every topic we're going to explain in theoretical part, as well as we're going to show it in the live demonstration, so that you can feel that how that command is going to execute, and then what is the expected output alongside with the theoretical part. So I'm not going to call this as a Oracle course or Oracle classes or Oracle training. I'll call it as a Oracle administration workshop, because each and every topic has its own live demonstration classes. I'm going to show it in my lab, and then along the side, you're going to execute the same command in your lab, and then you're going to feel that output. So it's kind of explaining the theoretical part, and then parallelly we're doing the live demonstration. So that is where we can call it as a Oracle administration workshop rather than Oracle course. Because we're doing both. I'm going to show you how that command is going to execute and what is the expected output, and along the side you're going to execute the same command with each and every topic. It has its own lab, and then you will feel that output. That's where we can call it as an administration workshop. And then coming to my own experience, so I'm having overall around 13 years of experience in Oracle world, and then almost all the Oracle technologies I worked in as a Oracle database admin, Oracle RAC expert, Oracle data guard expert, and then also I worked on Oracle engineering system, Oracle Exerta administration certified expert. I worked on Oracle Exerta Box, and also I worked as a Oracle EBS and OBI application admin, and also worked in Oracle OCI Cloud. So almost all the Oracle products or Oracle technologies I have touched it. And then along the side, I also had experience in Informatica admin, and then other cloud technologies, and then other DevOps technologies like your Shell script, Perl script, and then Terraform script, and then your GitHub, all other DevOps concept also I worked. And also I worked as an infrastructure lead, where I had a quite knowledge on storage and networking. And then we have implemented one of the new data center for one of the customer, where we have to explore more on the storage level and network level, and then tape storage and all those things. And then we have set up a brand new infrastructure for one of the client. So all those areas I have worked. And then along with this Oracle database side, I have other secondary skills like MySQL, MS SQL, Postgres, and other things. But if somebody asks what is your primary skills, I always feel proud and say that Oracle is my primary skill. That's about quite introduction on me. And then coming to this course, I'll just gonna brief it how this course concept is gonna work. This is what I hope everyone has gone through this course content. If not, then feel free to go to my blog and then check for this course content here. I can directly go to my course content here. I'll directly jump into my course content. So while I'm explaining, if somebody has any doubts or questions or queries, please unmute yourself and then stop me and then ask your questions. We'll start with our enrollment setup here. And then this enrollment setup, where we're going to explore about the softwares and ISO images, how we're going to install your Linux VM, and then how you're going to install that Linux OS on that VM. And then you can set up your ready VM. And then once the VM is ready, how you can create the users, how you can log into those VMs servers, and then how you can create your databases. All those things we're going to explore on this setting up this environment. Once the environment is ready, then we can start with our actual database administration class. So setting up environment is very basic need for any DBA in order to test and do any kind of a testing or practice, or you can you know uh, break your system and then try to restore your system back using your DBA skills. So environment is very mandatory. So I'll cover from the basics so that you can do n number of setup in your own laptop, and then you can do any kind of testing and you can troubleshoot any kind of issues. And then after that we'll start with some of the basic understanding of networking, because as a DBA we should understand a networking concept, at least the basic networking concept, because many times when you're working as a DBA, your clients or customer will often come back to you, I'm unable to connect to my database using my client or using my application or using my any third party softwares. So that you have to troubleshoot whether the connectivity between that client machine to your database machine, or whether your TNS ping is working, or whether your listener is up and running. So all those troubleshooting, all those whether the port is opened between source and target, all those networking skills you have to understand. So we'll cover some of the basics of networking, and then whatever needed for as a DBA, whatever you need to understand as a network perspective, how you can check that connectivity between two servers, and how I can trace that traffic between two servers, and then how I can check whether the port is opened on those servers, whether the port is listing on those servers. Those are the basics, or at least those are the basic concept you should understand as a DBA. So all those will be covered in while explaining a network concept. And then we'll start with the installation of our databases. The database installation or database setup has many methods. I'm going to brief on all of them. You can choose any one of that. Like, you can install in silent mode, or you can install in GUI mode, or you can install using clone method, or you can install using export import. Many methods. You can explore all of them, all of those options, and then whichever you feel best, and then you can use it as a best practice. And then again, creation of manual method also, we'll try it out. We'll see the differences between 11G, 12C, 19C installation. All those differences, what are the changes happen, we'll understand all of them. And then we'll start with architecture. So purely we'll explain about the core basic architecture, and then we'll see the differences between your 11G, 12C, 19C. If you compare with 11G and 12C, in 11G we don't had that multi-tenant architecture, and then in 12C we had that multi-tenant architecture. And then that's a major difference in the architecture wise. So we'll cover that basic architecture as well as your multi-tenant architecture. And we have a separate class for multi-tenant architecture where we can deep dive into CDBs and PDBs, and then how that multi-tenant architecture works. So everything we can cover over there. And then once we understand about architecture with differences, and then basic core concept of our database architecture with 11G, 12C, 19C, we'll start with our actual database administration concept, where we can deep dive into our starting shutting down my databases. What is P file, control file, redo log files, data files, archive log file, temp files, and then what are my SP file and P file, what is password file, what are the memory component, how SGA and PGA will be allocated, what is my database instance, what is my data files, what are my table spaces, and then what are my dictionary views, and then what is locally managed and then dictionary managed extents, what are my database blocks, and then what are my segments, extents, all those storage concept, everything we will try to understand from the scratch. And then whatever the concept, whatever the terms and technologies I'm going to use it now here, that who are new to this Oracle course, they may feel that these are magical words, I can't able to understand. You just keep it aside. This is just an intro, I'm just doing it out. Once we start with the actual class, we'll understand each and every terms and each and every keywords, whatever we're going to explain it here. Somebody is telling, Jane, you were telling you are still not able to hear. Is it same with everyone? Everyone, can you guys hear me, or it's only with Jane who is okay? Yeah, funny. Thanks for confirmation. Jen, I think probably you can check your mic or headphone. I think everyone can able to hear. Probably issue with your mic or headset. Just check it out. And then where we are like, we try to understand each and every concept, and then we'll try to drill down into that user level administration, and then how to create a users, how to assign the roles, grants, and then privileges, and then how to revoke that privileges, and then how to compare the privileges between one user to other users, how to replicate that one single user to multiple users. All those basic admin activities, whatever as a DBA needed for day in and day out task, will all will explain, and then we'll see it in a live demonstration. Once that basic fundamental architecture and then basic tasks are completed, we'll jump into ASM concept. ASM is again one more advanced topic. It's like automatic storage management, where Oracle provided solution. We'll try to install our ASM instance, and then we'll go into our ASM command line, ASM SQL command prompt, and then we'll see the various commands, and then we'll try to understand ASM architecture and then database architecture. We'll compare them between the ASM and database architecture, and then we will understand what are the advantages, why we need ASM, and then what is the impact if I install database in my ASM storage, if I install my database in local storage, and then we'll understand that, and then we'll do some of the administration activities in my ASM, and then we'll try to do some administration activities in creation of disk groups, adding a disk and dropping a disk, all those inside my ASM. So completely purely on ASM, we're going to talk about this chapter number 9. And then chapter number 10, it is purely on multi-tenant architecture, your CDBs and PDBs, how to connect to CDB, how to connect to PDBs, and then how to clone my PDBs, and then how to create your PDBs, and then how to plug and unplug my PDBs. So, and then everything, how this PDB and CDB architecture works. So everything we can cover over here. And then what are the basic, need of PDBs? What are the basic need of CDBs? Why this CDB PDB concept came? And then what are the administration skills we need as a PDBs and CDBs? Because 21C onwards, always PDBs and CDBs. There is no normal databases in 21C. 21C onwards, Oracle strictly forcing everyone to move to CDBs and PDBs. So understanding of CDBs and PDBs and this multi-tenant architecture is very mandatory for any DBS. So we'll deep dive inside that CDBs and PDBs, and then we'll see a lot of activities on that. And then we'll come to chapter number 11. It's purely on networking. Networking in the sense, as I already explained, if the client comes back to you and then say that, I'm unable to connect to my database, how we are going to troubleshoot whether your listener is up and running or not, whether you are able to do a TNS ping or not, whether your services are listening or not, whether you configured proper services inside your database or not, and then what is your TNS name.ora, what is your listener name.ora, what is your SQLnet.ora, and then how to verify whether the port is opened or not, whether the port is listening or not. All those connectivity related to your applications or client or your SQL developer or Toad, all those you are going to see it in this networking concept. And then coming to user management, creation of users, assigning the roles, and then granting the quotas, and then assigning the uh, profiles, and then some granting the privileges and revoking the privileges, and then replicating one user to another users, and then comparing the two user privileges whether they are matching or not. And then sometimes you get a request that I want to create a user one similar to user two. So how we can compare that user two privileges and then create it user one, how we can export that metadata and then import it here. So all those we are going to see it here in this user management. And then we'll start with understanding of backups and recoveries. We'll start with the conventional backups, okay, cold backup, hot backup, RMAN backup, and then what is level 0 backup, level 1 backup, what is incremental backup, what is the differential backup, and then what is your how you're going to take that backup, how is going to restore that backup, what is restore and recovery, what is RMAN clone, what is RMAN duplicate database, and then uh, how I can schedule my RMAN backup using a cron job, and then how I can monitor my RMAN backup status, and then uh, what happens if I use a restore and recovery command, what happens if I use a RMAN clone or RMAN duplicate, and then how I can build my development database using RMAN active database duplicate. And then all those concepts, backups and recoveries are one of the backbone for every organization. You should have a strong backup and recovery scenario, recovery strategy, so that in case of any disaster or in case of anything goes wrong with your production database or in your data center, you should have a valid backup in order to restore your database. So setting up your backups strategy is very, very mandatory for any organization. So we'll deep dive in more understanding of our backups and recovery scenarios, and also we'll see some of the scenarios like restoring your control file, restoring your data file, and then if all the data files are lost, how you can restore it, and then uh, if only one data file is lost, and how you're going to restore it. So all those concepts we're going to cover it here in this backups and recovery scenarios. And then we'll start with the patching, because patching is one of the common activities for any DBS in any organization, because Oracle strongly recommend to apply the patches on every quarterly basis. Oracle releases in every quarterly patches of January, April, and then July, and then October. So right now, uh, April, I think yesterday, on day for yesterday, Tuesday, Oracle has released the new patch. Oracle will release the patches on every quarterly, Jan, April, July, and then the October. Every 4 quarters, Oracle will release the patches, a critical patch update they will call it, CPU, and then we have to apply those patches on our Oracle home and then not Oracle database level. So this is one of the common activity. Some customer will apply on all the quarterly patches. Some customer will apply on half yearly. Some customer will apply yearly once. So this patching activity is going to be common activity for all the organization, all the customers. So as a DBA, we should understand how we can analyze that patch, how I can apply that patch, what is that patch tool we're going to use it. Basically, we use something called OPatch. OPatch is a tool we're going to use it, and then why we are using that OPatch tool for patching, and then what are the methods to apply that patch. There's a OPatch auto and then manual method. We're going to cover all of them, and then how we're going to apply the patch at your ASM level, how you're going to apply the patch at your Oracle home level, how you're going to, once you apply the patch and ASM and then Oracle home, how you're going to apply it at your database level. All those we're going to see it in this patching exercise. And then what are the common issues and then remediations during the patching, all those scenarios we can see it out. And then when it comes to the patching, people will say different words. They will call it as a PSU, CPU, bundle patch, one-off patch, merge patch, interim patch, bug fix, security patch. As a DBA, it's just a patch for us. And then, whatever the naming convention, and then it has its own indication. We'll cover that, what that mean, what is merge patch mean, what is interim patch mean, what is security bug fix mean, what is bundle patch meaning. So all those we'll deep dive, we'll understand those keywords, and then we'll see that actual patching exercise. And then database upgradation, again we're going to see there are many ways to do a database upgradation: manual method, GUI method, DBUA, and then your auto upgrade, and then you can do a cat upgrade.sql using your command prompt. There are many methods to do your database upgradation from 11G to 12C, 11G to 19C, or 12C to 19C. There are many ways you can do your database upgrade. So we're going to see a few of the scenarios. What are the basic checks you need to do, and then once the database upgrade is done, what are the post checks you have to do. All those things we'll understand, and then we'll do few few database upgradations in hand. And then we'll understand about chapter number 18, that is purely on data guard architecture. We'll see data guard is also one of the high availability solution for any customer. You can replicate your production database and then do a setup of your data guard, and then again in data guard you have various methods of your data guards. You have a physical standby, logical standby, and then snapshot standby, and then you have database protection modes: maximum availability, maximum protection, and then maximum performance. So what are these keywords, how you're going to set up them, and then once you set up your data guard, and then how to monitor your data guard sync, and then if your data guard goes out of sync, and then how to make it sync, and then if you're missing RHEL logs, and then if your data guard is goes out of sync, how will make it sync, and then once your FRA is full, how you can troubleshoot, how you can delete some of the RHEL log, and then you can continue to work all those scenarios, and then setting up of your data guard from the scratch. Everything we can cover it over here on the data guard. And then one of the common activity in data guard is your data guard switchover and failover. Many organizations, they will do DRDL. They will call it as a DRDL. They will convert primary as a standby and then standby as a primary. This is one of the common activity in many organizations. They will do once in a year. so that if they have a production database in London and then their database in in New Jersey, if the production data center goes down because of some disaster scenario, like your flood or fire or earthquake, your entire production data center goes off, and then immediately you have to turn on your standby database, and then you can connect your application to your standby database, and then business is continue to work, right? So that is one of the disaster scenario. You have to set up your data guard in two different data center and two different regions, so that any disaster scenario happens, still you can sustain your business. So we'll try to do this switch over and fail over, one of the live demonstration, and then we'll understand how that actual DRDL works. And then we'll start with some of the basic shell scripting, because as a DBA, the moment we log into each and every shift, we have to make sure that our database is available 24/7 support. Database will be available 24/7, and then your database will be like able to connect, and your listener should be up and running, and then your database has enough of space, enough of free space. Your disks are having enough free space to allow the new transactions, and then your database growth movement, how much it is growing on daily basis, and then how many users are connecting, what is my database performance currently, how many users are connected. So all these basic checks we have to do it on day in and day out. So in order to do these basic checks, we have to spend at least 1 hour or 2 hours every day. So rather than manually doing all these checks, you can start writing small shell script and then schedule them as a cron job, and then you can write all those shell script, and then the moment you log in, and then you can execute all the shell script, and then you can get a report, and then you can review that report. So this shell script is going to be one of the very basics or mandatory skills needed for DBA to uh, do all this monitoring task. Write a shell script and then schedule it as a cron job, and then instead of you manually do your basic monitoring activities, your shell script will do it for you. And then if anything goes wrong, if your listener goes down, automatically trigger an email to your entire team, and then immediately go back, and then you can start your listener. And then the moment your database goes down, it will immediately trigger an email, and then connect back to your server, and then start your database. So these are like shell script is one of the mandatory skills for a DBA. We'll try to understand from the basics how to write a basic shell script, and then we'll demonstrate one or two scenarios like how we can automate your database monitoring activities using shell script. And then we'll do import and export, one of the logical backups and restore scenarios, that is import and export. How you're going to do import of your table, import of your schemas, import of your table space, import of your data files. You can export all your tables, schemas, table spaces and data files, and then how you're going to import it on your new database. And then what are the real-time scenarios, how you can improve my export and import. And then what are the common scenarios, how I can pause my export job, and then how I can resume my export job, how I can pause my import job, and then how I can resume my import job. All those scenarios we can see it here in this export and import. And then we'll cover some of the 12c and 19c new features, because there are hundreds of new features in 12c 19c as compared with your 11g. We'll take few of them, whatever is mandatory for DBA day in and day out activities, whatever the mandatory needed for DBA jobs. We'll see those new features and we'll demonstrate them. And then we'll start understanding of performance tuning factors, like how we can generate your AWR report, EDDM report, AHS report, how to read those reports, and then what are the factors you need to consider while generating those reports. Once you read your AWR report, and then what are your remediations, like you might be recommend for rebuilding indexes, rebuilding your existing indexes, and then building a new indexes, or gathering the stats on your table level, schema level, and then generating your apart from this gathering the stats, table stats, or you can do a table move or table string, or you can say that patching is one of the recommendation. And then you're going to see your execution plan, and then if there's any plan change, all those recommendations we're going to see it once we read our AWR report, and then we'll see some of the recommendations as a DBA, and then we'll take the appropriate action on that. And then some of the real-time scenarios, we're going to see some of the screenshot, whatever I collected, what are the real-time issues with the performance factors. We'll cover all of them. And then at that concludes our scheduled course, whatever planned for this database course. And then at the end, we're going to talk about resume and cover letter. I'll just drive through my cover letter and then resume. And then you can, prepare your resume with similar format or whatever the format you have it. And then some of the sample interview questions and all those things we'll discuss along the course. And then at the end of the course, we're going to conduct some of the mock interviews, provided you have to register. And then we'll take one-to-one mock interview, and then we'll see that how much expertise or how much knowledge you gain it out of this course. And then that's going to helpful for your any interview if you're planning it out. Right, any questions around this course content, or anything is missing, or if you'd like to add it more on that, it will be welcome on this.
Yeah, hi Malik, Pani here. Hello.
Yeah,
Can you hear
yeah,
me?
Pani. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see your course content, and I would like to know, I mean, what about the system requirement? Actually, probably I might have missed in any other blog or anything.
Right.
What sort of system or configuration is required for all those things? Like,
For this database course, we need at least 8 GB RAM in your laptop, and then hard disk doesn't matter. Like, at least if you have 50 GB of hard disk, that's
Okay.
fine. But the minimum you need a 8 GB RAM. If you have a lesser than 8 GB, like you have a 4 GB or 6 GB, still you can work, but that's gonna be like very
Yeah.
tedious. It will be very
Performance
slow on the
issue might come, right? Yeah.
right. Minimum, if you have 8 GB RAM, you can easily work, and then it will be like best fit for the database course.
What about OS?
Your Windows OS is fine. Like if you are Windows OS, whether Windows like you have Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 10 or Windows 11, doesn't matter. If you're like having Windows OS, then pretty much it's good.
Okay. Okay. So any other timings for the batch, like?
Right now we don't have any other batch plan. Right now this is the only batch, 9 AM to 11 AM every day, 2 hours.
Okay.
That's a schedule one. So I'm not planning anything. So yeah, good question on that. Like coming back to this other details, this is going to be weekday classes, every day 2 hours, Monday to Friday. With a weekday basis, every day 2 hours, like Monday to Friday, and then it's going to be like 9 AM IST to 11 AM IST. Approximately, it will be like around 30 to 45 days. The course is going to complete. Approximately around 70 to 90 hours. And then some of the content, like each and every topics, whatever we have explained, it has its own lab exercise, and then we'll be like doing a lab content, and then we're doing a live lab demonstration on each of them. And then the course fees is going to be 10K, and then you can make it using a bank transfer or Google Pay or PhonePe, anything, whatever preferred method you like it. And then we have a dedicated WhatsApp group for each batch. And then any communications we'll discuss in our WhatsApp group. Any questions? It's not necessarily related to your database course. Since some people might be already working in any organization, and then if you're stuck with any task or any activity in your organization, you can feel free to post it in our group, or you can ping me in personally in my WhatsApp, or anyway, like it's a better to ping it or better to use our WhatsApp group, because each group, each database course has its own dedicated WhatsApp group. You can post your queries in that WhatsApp group, and then I'll be able to answer that questions, and then getting forwarded or going ahead with that task, whatever you stuck, wherever you stuck.
Yeah, hi Malik, Zahir here. So yeah, any database migration concept is available?
Database migration will not be covered here, but we can discuss it. Like this is one. These are a few of the extra topics, right? Once we complete this course, we will list out what are the topics you guys want to discuss, and then we'll take it as the extra classes. For example, few people asked for Golden Gate, so I said like I kept my other previous batch people or student to wait, and then once I get 1 or 2 classes completed, and then I can merge together, and then I can take it these extra classes, because migration is not a simple topic, right? This is one of the advanced high level concept, so that needs to be lab set up between 2 different OS platforms like AX, Linux, and then we need to demonstrate that, right? So,
Yeah.
but concept wise, we can discuss it out, but these will be take it as extra classes. That's where, these are like, dedicated WhatsApp group. Those groups will be there forever. And then regularly we'll be conducting some extra classes, and then I'll be posting it in our group, and then we will join, and then we'll, get some knowledge out of that.
Okay, Malik.
All right. Any questions on this before I go further?
At the end of this course, please try to cover some basic rack topics.
Rack, probably we can in this course itself. I'll be comparing with the rack and standalone. There's some like 1 or 2 chapters I'll be covering the differences between the rack and this one. Probably I have some of the pre-recorded videos for the rack, some of the basic concept. Probably I'll give a grant access on everyone. You can just go through and watch them. And then I do conduct some rack advanced course. Like, that will be like, probably you might have gone through that. If not, then go to my rack course content. And then after this database course, if you want to enroll, you feel free to enroll for that rack course. But if you want a basic, some videos or basic understanding, probably I'll be covering in this course itself, some of the basics of rack. And also I can grant you access on those videos. You can just watch them.
Thank you.
Right. So again, if
Hi, Malik. Yeah, Malik, when is this batch going to start actually?
This is going to start. These are the 2 demo classes, 21 and 22, and then starting with this Monday, the class is going to start regularly.
So tomorrow also the same session, right? I mean,
tomorrow I'm going to cover some of the basics of database. If anybody interested can join. If not, then probably Monday is our actual class is going to start.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Malik. Morning. Naveen here.
Hey, Naveen. Yeah.
After a simple question, like after this course, do you provide any certification or anything like that? Just a paper or like that? Or
No certifications. Just online training. No certifications or the course completion or whatever. Like, no, I'll not provide that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ajay, this course is completely go through the 12C or 19C or 11G.
19C. It's purely on 19C.
Okay. Just we have to tell about the only 11G and 12C features. Complete training on 19C.
It's all start with the 19C only. I'll just compare with your 11G and 12C. What's the difference? What had changes happened? It's purely on 19C. This course is entirely purely on 19C.
Okay. One more thing, you recorded the sessions, right? How long we can able to access the
these recorded sessions will be lifetime, and then you can access it at any time. Like, those will never deleted from our Google Drive. You can access it, and then in fact, once you get access on our Google Drive, you have an option to download it locally. You can download it on your own laptop. There's no restriction on that.
Okay, thank you.
And then other interesting factor is, right, this is the course registration. What you are doing, it is one-time registration payment, and then it's a lifetime support. In case if I'm going to start the new batch in, you want to re-attend that course, you feel free to re-attend. You don't need to pay any extra amount then. But kind of a one-time registration fees, you're paying it, and then you can access it. I can rejoin that any upcoming batch. No restriction at all in that. Right. And then probably if somebody missed, you can always go to my blog, and then I'll be writing some of the technical content on regularly. You can feel free to follow my blog and then get some technical concept. Like, I'll be keep on writing some of the blogs on regularly. And then I do have a dedicated, like, a public YouTube channel where you can regularly posting some of the videos on Oracle technologies. You can feel free to search for Malik Jyotifor and then subscribe to my channel, or you can just watch those technical contents. There are lot many videos in my channel, so there's so much things, but randomly spreaded across that. It contains everything: data guard, rack, golden gate, and then it has your OEM, and it has your EBS, everything it's there. It's all related to Oracle. Whatever you needed, just go through those videos. And then we have a public Telegram group. There are a lot of technical discussion we'll be doing, and then I'll be regularly watching our Telegram group. And then we'll be posting some of the questions, and people will be like discussing. Just go through it, and then try to join our Telegram group, and then post any questions and query. These are like public groups. You can feel free to join. Right. So that's about our course content.
Hey, Malik, I have another
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, please. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is certification. If I have 11G certification, can I, after this course, can I go straight upgrade to 12C, or how many exams do I need to pass?
We can directly go for upgradation from 11G to, there's upgrade exam. You can directly go that. There's upgrade exam from 11G or 12C directly to 19C. There's upgrade. I can share it in the group, probably in our WhatsApp group. You can directly attend, write that exam. It'll directly get a 19C OC or OCP certificate.
All right.
Hi, Malik, I have another question.
Yeah.
I told you before that I'm new to this database kind of a thing and everything. So,
right.
Do I need to learn Linux and SQL before learning this VBA, or it will be covered in the course itself?
Like basics of Linux will be covered here, and then some of the basics of SQLs. I'll take one basic SQL session. One day I'll take one session.
Okay.
Then there's already, probably, let me go here. There's already some of the SQLs I uploaded in our Google Drive. So probably if you go to that content, that's more than enough as a DBA. I'll be covering some of the basics of SQLs as well as basics of Linux. That's more than enough as a DBA. But if you want to go to in deep, I have uploaded some of the SQLs and other stuffs. You can just go to that. That's more than enough.
Another question, like before starting your classes, I need to install any software, or you will be covered in
No,
your
we will
sessions
cover day by day, like, the moment I'll be covering from the scratch. So you can do it along with whatever I cover.
Okay, that's it. That's all. Thank you, Manu.
Right. Right. So again, same thing, whatever we explained, same course content. Again, as we discussed, right, some of the advanced topics. So we'll be covering whatever that we'll come up with after this course. Somebody asked some of the React basics, right? Probably we'll take it as the extra topic. These are like advanced topics. We'll take it as a end of this course. Regularly, once in a while, we'll connect and then we'll take this course. And then, as I said, like, each and every concept has its own lab exercise, and then I'll explain it on our Monday class how to access our labs, how to check our course content, course materials, and all those things. We'll see that each and everything will be having our own lab here. If you see, this is our course content, our database course materials, and it has its own bunch of folders here. We'll be getting access on all of them. And then if you go on this lab exercise here, and then each and every topic has its own lab. For example, if I open any one of the lab exercise, we'll be having commands. You're going to see, just copy and then execute those commands. And then you're going to do it in your own lab. And then we do have this ready VMs here, right? Ready VMs for standalone. We have a VM with a database, VM with ASM and database, VM with ASM and database with Oracle Lab 1, Lab 2, and then just a empty VM. If you want to practice the installation, you can install this VM and then you can practice the installation. If you don't want to practice that installation, directly download this lab and then use it as a ready VM. This is like VM with the database is ready. This is like your VM with ASM and database is ready. We do have this ready labs here. You can directly download and then use it. You can do one-time practice of installation, and then if you're doing a multiple testings and multiple use cases, right? Every time you cannot install it, right? Database installation will take 30 minutes or 1 hour. You don't want to spend that 1 hour or 2 hours. You can directly use this ready VMs and then directly do this restore recovery. During the restore recovery, your database may crash or your server may crash, right? Again, you no need to do it from the scratch. You just download this ready VMs and then you can use that. I'll gonna explain that how to use these VMs and then how to set up in your lab once we start our regular classes. And then each and every topic has its own lab here, lab exercise. And then we do have a course material here. And then this is a master PPT, whatever I'm referring here, database course. I already uploaded here database course. This PPT, this is a single PPT we'll be referring for entire course. So, and then either you can go to your lab exercise here and then open your lab content and then practice it. Or if you scroll down here, I attached all the lab content here itself. You can directly refer this single PPT, download it locally. Just go here and then download this entire course content. If you want to download it locally, you can download it locally on your laptop, and then you can open it here. This is the course PPT, and then we're referring this single PPT. If you refer this single PPT throughout this course, that is more than enough. Right. So again, I'll cover in brief how to access.
Malik,
I
have a question.
Yeah,
where do I
please.
get this material again? Can you show me?
I will grant it on Monday, because Monday once
okay.
everyone register,
Okay.
and then we have the dedicated WhatsApp group, right?
Okay,
I'll post
no problem.
in that group.
Yeah, no problem.
Right. Let's any questions on the course content, course material before I get started with some of the basics? Right. So I'll take it no, and then let's understand your enrollment setup, right? In order to set up your lab, in order to practice it, you have to do this lab setup first, right? For that, you need to download a couple of softwares. One is your Linux ISO image. You need to install your Linux, and then once you install your Linux OS, on top of that Linux OS, you need to install your database. For that, you need to download your Oracle software. And then Oracle patches are not needed because that's a different concept. We will cover it during the patching. At least you need this ISO image and you need this Oracle software. Once you get this Linux ISO image and once you get your Oracle software, and then with the Linux ISO image, you're going to install your Linux VM. Once the Linux VM is ready, you can log into that Linux VM, and then you're going to install your Oracle software. Once you install your Oracle software, you're going to create your database. Once you create your database, and then you're going to start with your all the activities. And the question comes where I can download this softwares. For that, I have attached here this particular database administration workshop here, right? If I open that one, right? So this is your database workshop here. I'll just brief through that where you can download, and then first question is how to download that Oracle software and then ISO image. These are your first two concepts, Linux ISO image and then Oracle software. Where to download them? You have to go to your Oracle eDelivery. I'll just demonstrate that here. You have to go to this eDelivery.oracle.com, and then Oracle has provided all these softwares and then all these ISO images free for practice. You should not use officially, you should not use it for your organization use, but for the practice, for the training, you can feel free to use it, and then you can practice it. And you can register with your own Gmail ID, and then once you register, you can log in with your Gmail ID. You can create your own account with your Gmail ID, and then you can log into using that your Gmail ID, and then it'll go to your Oracle eDelivery cloud. And then there you can search for, you can see, like I given all the example, you can search for your Oracle Linux or Oracle database. I can search for Oracle Linux. I can search for Oracle Linux 7, or I just search for Oracle Linux, and then it list out all the versions. Latest was 8.5. We'll be using this Oracle Linux 7.9. You can just click on this one here. It's going to add it to cart here, and then continue. And then you can download this ISO image. You can select the platform x86-64, continue, and then go with the license agreement, continue. And then you can download that ISO image. There's so many ISO files here. Pretty much you can go ahead and then download this 4.5, the first one. This is your actual ISO image. Remaining are like supporting files. These are not needed. Just download this ISO image, which is like 4.5 GB. Just download this ISO image, and then that's enough. Then click on that download or click on this download. It's going to download it locally on your laptop. That's about your Oracle Linux. And then database software, you can download it. Just search for database software. I'll just go back. I'll just remove this one. I don't need this one here. Right, I'll just search for Oracle database. You can download your 11G, 12C, 19C or whatever software. You can 21C is the latest, 18C is here. And then you can download your 12C is here. And then similarly, you can download Oracle database 19C. You can search for Oracle database 19C. And you can just see 19C software. Just add it to cart. You're going to add it here. And then continue. And then the Linux, you can ignore this one. You can select this x86-64. And then you can download your database software or your grid infrastructure software or client software. I'm going to explain it when this grid software, database software is needed once we start our actual class. So I given the screenshot here. You can search your database, Oracle database or Oracle Linux, and then click on continue. Once you add it to cart, click on continue, and then click on download button. It's going to download it locally on your laptop. Right, and then going back here, this is about your downloading your ISO image and Oracle software. Once your ISO image and Oracle softwares are ready, we're gonna set up our Virtualbox. Virtualbox, we have two concepts here. One is VMware Workstation and then Oracle Virtualbox. This VMware Workstation is not a free of cost, but Oracle Virtualbox is a free of cost. This VMware Workstation has the 30 days license. We're not going to use this VMware Workstation. We're going to use this Oracle VirtualBox. Directly, we're going to download that Oracle VirtualBox. If I go here again, you can go ahead and search your Oracle VirtualBox in your Google, like in Google, how to download that VMware Workstation. In Google, search for VM Workstation. You can see the download, and then it has a Windows and Linux Pro version. If you download it, only 30 days trial period. We're not using this VMware Workstation. We're using this Oracle VirtualBox. In Google, search for Oracle VirtualBox, and then you'll go to Oracle VirtualBox. Click on that one, and then you can download that latest 6.1. And then once you download it, and then you can install it locally. So if I go back here, Oracle VirtualBox, and then go to this first link, and then you can download this Oracle VirtualBox here. Once you download this Oracle VirtualBox, and you can install it on your laptop. Once you install, you will get the icon here, this VirtualBox here. I have installed here. It's just like your normal VirtualBox. Let's remove this one. Right, once you get with this Oracle VirtualBox installed in your laptop or your desktop, and then we'll start with the installation of VM. Once the VM is ready, then we will start with our database creation and then other setup. So just to brief it in simple words, first point is like we're going to use Oracle VirtualBox. So we're going to download Oracle VirtualBox. We're going to download this from Google. Once you download, and then the second step will be like install this Oracle VirtualBox. This is the second step you have to do it. Oracle VirtualBox on your laptop or desktop, whatever, like wherever. So these are like two basic steps. You need to download your VirtualBox, download from Google. So it's a free of software. You can just download this Oracle VirtualBox. Once the Oracle VirtualBox is downloaded in your laptop, install this Oracle VirtualBox on your laptop or desktop. Once you install, you will see this installation installed software, Oracle VirtualBox Manager. And then the next step is you're going to download ISO image. That will be like your OEL, Oracle Enterprise Linux. So we're going to install Oracle Enterprise Linux 7.9. So where you're going to download this Oracle Enterprise Linux, download your ISO. It will be like your Oracle Enterprise Linux 7.9. From where you're gonna download this one, Oracle e-delivery. So you're going to download this from Oracle e-delivery. This is your Oracle e-delivery. So you're going to download it from Oracle e-delivery. Right. So once you download your ISO image and then create your VM. Create your VM on Oracle Virtual Manager. So whatever this Oracle Virtual Manager, Oracle VM Virtual Manager box, whatever this Oracle Virtual Box is there, you can create your VM here, new VM, and then you're going to create Oracle Lab 1, and then I'm going to proceed further, and then VDI dynamic allocation. I'll just go with the default option. This is going to create your Oracle VM here. Create your VM using Oracle Virtualbox Manager, Virtualbox Manager. Using this Oracle Virtualbox Manager, we're going to create this VM and then import that ISO image. Create your VM on Oracle Virtualbox Manager using ISO image. So here you need to download, append that ISO image. The moment I start this one here, it will ask you to upload that ISO image. Whatever you download ISO image, it will ask you to upload this ISO image. You can see, right, empty. You have to browse your ISO image, click on this add button, and then you're gonna upload that ISO image. I don't have that ISO image here. I will show it on the Monday. You have to upload that ISO image, and then you have to set up your the VM installation here. So that's gonna create your VM called your Oracle Lab 1. So this is your VM you created here. Once your VM is ready, then next step is download your software. Whatever this ISO image you downloaded, now you're going to download. Instead of ISO image, we're going to download database software. We're going to do database software here. Again, we're going to download it from Oracle e-delivery. We'll go here and then we'll download this database softwares here. Once I download the database softwares, and then I'll create Oracle Home first. Create Oracle Home, or you can call it as a Oracle software. Once you download this Oracle software, you have to create that Oracle Home using that Oracle software, or you have to install that Oracle software on that VM. Create Oracle Home or Oracle software on your VM. That will be your Oracle Lab 1. Right. So once you created your Oracle Home using the downloaded software on your VM, whichever you created, on top of that, you're going to create your database. Create your own database. So you can create any database called DevDB or TestDB or whatever the database, you can create it. Once you create your database, then our database admin task will start. And then whatever as a DB activity you want to do it, we're going to do it. These are like, brief steps, what you need to do it in order to set up your lab. ISO image and database software. You need to download ISO image, you need to download, and then you have to create your own VM using your Oracle Virtualbox here. You have to create your VM here. Once your VM is ready, next step is like download your ISO image here, download your database software, and then from that database software, you have to create your Oracle Home. Once the Oracle Home is created, you have to create your database. Once the database is created, then that's it. Our lab setup is ready. So this is a quite lab setup, what you need to do. I'm going to show you in the live demonstration once we start our actual class. Any questions on this one? This is a simple steps what we covered. These are, every time if you want to do all this setup, right, it's going to take you around 4 hours or 5 hours. One time setup, you can do it and you can practice this setup. And then after onwards, you no need to set up again because we have a ready VMs here. This is like if you download this Oracle Lab 1, it's just like your normal VM here, like up to step number 4, it will be ready here if you download this one. And then if you download this one here, Oracle DB, up to here, create database, everything will be like set up here. Oracle lab 1 with database. It's a ready lab here. It's all available here. So that's a ready labs. You can download it and you can practice, or you can use it in your day-to-day task. Or if you want to do it practice from the scratch, you can do it from one time, because it's going to take 4 to 5 hours. You can every time you cannot do it, right? The moment you crash, or the moment your VM is corrupted, or by doing any database migration or database upgradation or database cloning, export, import, or restore, recovery, whatever test case you're doing it in your lab here, and somehow your database got corrupted. And then do you have a time to do all this setup one more time from the scratch? No, right? So you can directly download this one here and then use it. Your setup is ready. So that's a use case of, I already uploaded this ready VMs here. Right, so that's about how you can set up your lab in your VM. So I'm going to demonstrate probably tomorrow with a live how you can demonstrate this one. And then we are going to use Oracle Virtualbox. Oracle Virtualbox is just, as I said, just download that from your Google. Just download it here for Windows OS. Just click on this one. It will directly download it locally. It will ask you to download where you want to download, and then just double click and it will get install it on your laptop or desktop. And then once you install, it will get your Oracle Virtualbox Manager. And then on top of that, we're going to install the VMs. Right, so that's about your VM Virtualbox installation, and then how you're going to set up your ISOs. Some of the basics of your Linux, if you want to understand your Linux, probably if the VM is ready, I could have explained that one, but let me see if I have any VM here. I can try to show that. Otherwise, tomorrow I'll show you that understanding of. Let's see whether I have any ready lab available. Okay. Before that, let me explain this other tools, right? Like, let's go back here. Okay, some of the tools as a DBA, we will regularly use it. Not regularly, daily we'll use it as a DBA. One is your Winscp. Winscp is to copy. It will be like available in your Windows laptop. Winscp. We're gonna open that Winscp and then we're gonna cover it. We're gonna give that host name and then the username and then the password. Basically, Winscp, we are going to use it for copying file from your Windows to Linux or Linux to Windows. If you want to copy any file from your Windows server to Linux server or from the Linux to Windows, we're going to use that Winscp. Putty is to connect your Linux servers. Your Linux server will be reside somewhere in your remote data center, right? It might be in your London or your New Jersey or Washington DC. Your data center will be somewhere, and your all the VMs, all the Linux servers will be resides under data center. In order to access those Linux VMs, either we can use a Putty or MobaXterm or anything. So Putty is here, like just open your Putty session and then provide your IP address here. This IP address of one of my server, which is in London or some data center. Click OK, and then you can provide the username and then the password, and then that's gonna connect to your database here. Like it connected to that server. And then if you want to use Putty, open your Putty session here, and then click on this SSH session, SSH, and then put your IP address here. This is your IP address. IP address are the host name. Click OK, and then again it will ask you to username and password. Enter your username and then your password. So it connected to your Oracle lab. So in order to take a remote session of your Linux server, we're going to use your Putty session or MobaXterm. And then we have a remote desktop, that is your RDP. It will be built in with your Windows. Okay, this one, remote desktop connection. So this remote desktop connection, in order to take a remote session of your Windows server, you have a Windows server in your remote data center. You have to use this remote desktop connection in order to take a remote session of your Windows server. For your Linux and for your Linux server, we are going to use Putty session or MobaXterm to take a remote session of your Linux servers. In order to take a remote session of your Windows server, you have to use this remote desktop connection, RDP. So this is my one of the Windows server. If I connect here, it will ask you to enter the password. So in order to take a remote connection of your Windows server, you have to use RDP. But Linux server, we're going to use Putty. So we don't cover anything related to Windows server. It's purely based upon the Linux. So I think that server might be down. It's not pingable, not reachable. So these are like basic tools what we're going to use it here as a DBA. The Putty and then MobaXterm daily we're going to use it. Winscp sometimes while copying we're going to use it. And then if somebody is using a remote desktop connection, they will use the Windows servers. They probably use a remote desktop RDP connections. One of the common questions they will ask in the interview is like, what is the port used while you're connecting to Putty or to your Linux server? Linux server, we always connect via port number 22. So if I show here, like if I take one more session, you can see default, it will be like 22 port number here, right? If I just put the IP address here, it will just connect. Let's take this IP one more time, new session SSH, and then default it 22 port, it will connect. If I change it to something else, and then it will not connect. If I make it to 21, it will not connect because default port is 22 is for SSH connection. That's for your Linux. That's one of the common questions. What is the default port for my SSH connection? That is your port 22. For your Windows RDP, we use 3389. That's the default port. Right. So apart from that, something what I wanted to cover here. Let's understand this file system, some of the basics of file system. I'll just brief it now. We'll go deep dive on Monday. In Windows and Linux, we have a different file system like FAT, NTFS, ext2, ext3, ext4, JFS, and XFS. These are like your Windows. FAT and then NTFS are for Windows. FAT is your old legacy file system. You have FAT 12, FAT 16, FAT 32. Those are like old. Your earlier days we used to have that FAT. Now your Windows, everything is having NTFS. That is a new technology file system. That is the NTFS. Windows is using NTFS file system. But all our Linux will be using your ext2, ext3, ext4, and JFS and XFS. These are like different file system, enhanced file system format. Most of the times it will be using a JFS nowadays. And then it has its own limitations. If you go here to this Red Hat site and then open that, what are the limitation among each of these file system types? Again, these are like your Linux admin task, but good to know that one. If you have like ext2 file system, you are running with your RHEL 7 or RHEL 6. Your ext2 and ext3 file system will support 2 TIB size of that mount point. Each of that mount point maximum individual file TIB, and then file system size. This is your file system size, the mount point size. If you go with the ext2 and ext3, maximum we can have 16 TIB. And then if I go with ext4, I can go with the 16 TIB. And then in RHEL 7, if I go with the ext2 and ext3, I can go with the 16 TIB in RHEL 7. And if I go with the ext4 file system, I can go up to 50 TIB. And then if I go with the XFS, that's the latest file system. If I go with the XFS file system in RHEL 7, I can have a mount point with the 500 TIB. Right, so that is a limitation. That's a file system support. Each of those with respect to that RHEL and RHEL version with respect to file system format. so that you can go to more understanding of JFS. JFS is again that IBM formatted. After this ext4, they came up with a concept called JFS, but JFS is not widely used. On top of that, like Red Hat has given this XFS, and then widely used this XFS is a default format for most of the cases. If I go here in my this current lab here, cat /etc fs tab, you can see this your root file system is formatted with XFS. And then any mount point, the moment you check this etc fs tab, we'll see that particular mount point is formatted with which file system. You can see you have dev mapper OL root. You have this dev mapper OL root. That's your root partition. Dev mapper OL root that is mounted with the root partition here, and then that root partition is formatted with XFS. You have this boot partition here, and you have this boot partition here, and then that boot partition is again formatted with this XFS. The moment you see this FS tab, and then each of those mount point formatted with this which file system, you can get this using your etc fs tab. So that's about your file system. That will be like your purely Linux admin task, but you need to understand this file system and then the limitations. Why I'm telling you, because you might be seeing like your file system. For example, you have a file system called Varadata here. Assuming that you have /Varadata file system, and then which is formatted with ext3, which is supports only 16 TB, and your database size is 20 terabyte. Then what you do? You have to ask your Linux admin. So my database size is 20 terabyte. I can convert this one TIB to TB. There's something conversion here, TIB to TB. This is 16, right? If I make it 16 in terabyte, that's going to be slightly more. That TIB is a different, and TB terabyte is a different here. If I go here, where is that one? It's a TIB. In terms of TIB, 16 TIB. Assume that it's a terabyte, 16 terabyte approximately, because 16 TIB becomes 17 terabyte. So assuming that your file system is formatted with this is the instead of boot, you can assume that it's your Varadata mount point where your database data files are going to reside. You're going to clone the new database from the production database. Production database is of 20 terabyte. You want to clone it here, and then suppose this Varadata mount point is formatted with your ext3 file system, and then that mount point cannot go more than 16 terabyte, but your database size is 20 terabyte. Then what you do? There's no way you can get the mount point. You can get this Varadata mount point more than 16 terabyte. 16 terabyte is the limit here. If it is formatted with ext2 or ext3, you have to ask your Linux admin, I want a mount point with a 20 terabyte. The moment you say 20 terabyte, he will format using ext4. The moment you format using ext4, that is supported up to 50 terabyte. And then you can get a mount point of Varadata with 50 terabyte, and then you can clone, or you can do a restore recover, or you can install your 50 terabyte database here. And then if your database is more than 50 terabyte, then you have to ask your Linux admin to format using. He will know, if you the moment you ask you need a mount point of more than 50 terabyte, immediately you will format using XFS, because that is supported up to 500 terabyte. You'll get a one single mount point with 500 terabyte. If you have a storage, if you have sufficient storage, you can create it. So it's a purely Linux admin task, but it's a good to know what are the file system is supported in Linux. In Linux, we have ext2, 3, ext4, and XFS. JFS is very rarely used. And in Windows, we have this FAT and NTFS. And then understanding of the partition is also one of the basic need for DBAs. These are the different partitions in each your Linux server. You can see it. One is a root partition for your root user. That's a master directory. If I go /root here, cd/root, that will take you to a root partition. If I do pwd, I'm at root directory now. So if I do ls, I can see all these directories, whatever I listed out here: bin, boot, dev, etc, all of them. So these are your different partitions. You can, this again Linux task, no worry. This is purely your Linux admin task. But as a DBA, we should understand how that Linux architecture and what are the directories are widely used. For example, I said etc. Just there's a slash etc. What is this etc means? This contains some configuration files for the system and system databases. For example, one of the common file we know is our Vara tab. If I go cat/etc Vara tab. Vara tab is our database, one of the configuration file where it will hold your database ID and then your Oracle home details. If I do cat of that, I have my database ID and then Oracle home. This is one of my configuration database configuration file. So all your configuration file will be resides under your etc. Go inside your etc, do ls, and you'll see a lot of configuration files here. It's not necessarily for my database. It is for any application. Any application you install, most of the configuration files will go inside your etc. One example is your Vara tab. Your Vara tab installed by your Oracle user. So that is your etc. And then coming to your boot is your C drive. In your Windows C drive, you have your, if I go here, my C drive, this PC. If I go to my my Windows, and if I go inside my C drive, I have this this Windows, and then this Windows directory is for my Windows operating system, right? All the operating system OS files resides under my C drive here, right? Similarly, in Linux, we have a boot. Inside that boot, we have all the Linux OS files, all the grub and boot configuration files. If I go inside /boot, and anything corrupted inside this, your database will, your OS will not start. So this all your these are your system init RMF, and then your grub. If you go inside this grub, these are your booting file. The moment you start your Linux, these are the booting files it will read, and then it will start your Linux. If anything corrupt here, anything goes wrong on this booting file, your Linux will not start, your Linux will not run. So this is your boot files. Boot file, this contains all the files needed for booting process, needed for your Linux system to start. And then bin is your bin executable files. All the executable files, everything will be resides under bin directory. If I go /bin, do ls, all the commands, whatever you teach, for example, mkdir is a command you're going to execute. Ls is a command. You're going to do ls is a command. That is also part of this. Whatever command you're going to execute here in this Linux box, all those executable commands will be part of this bin. And then similarly, we have home is for home path for all the users. If I go inside /home, any user you create, that user will be like home path is your home, and then that respective owner home directory. For example, if I do su Oracle, I'll go inside home and then Oracle. That's a home directory for that. Now I'm logged in as a root user here. Now I'm connecting to Oracle user. If I do su Oracle, you can see now I'm become Oracle user here. If I do pwd present working directory, I'll directly go into home Oracle. Now if I log into Malik user and then enter the password for that, is it a correct password? No. Let's log into root user. Now I'll log into Malik user here. I'll go to my home directory. So Malik, if I do pwd, I'll go into home Malik directory, right? So that's a home directory for all the users. pwd, this /home is a home directory for users. You can see I have Malik user and Oracle user. If I add simple command user add, I can have I can add John. John is one of the OS user. I'm just going to create user add John. The moment I create that John, his directory will get created here. John. Home directory for John. If I do login to John here, su John, I'll go to my home directory for that John, like home John. Home directory is a home directory for all the users. Whatever the OS user you're going to create, those particular directory, home directory will be get created under that home. And then we have something called library and then library 64. These are your library executable files. all the soft link and library, everything will be like part of that. If you go /lib, all these library executables, you can see it here. And then you have lib64. You have to go /. So again, this lib64 also, all the library executables. So this is needed for your any software installation or your OS operation. These library executables are very mandatory. And then this media and MNT media is any CD or anything. If you USB, if you upload, it will come under /media. Right now that will be like empty. /media, do ls, nothing will be there here. So here like nothing will be there. This will be like empty. The moment you plug your USB or any CD, USB or ISO image, everything will come under this media. And then this MNT, any mount point you want to mount, you can use this MNT mount point. Right now that MNT mount point also empty. So if you want to mount any mount point, you can use this MNT mount point. Temporarily you want to mount any mount point. And then proc is like, all the running processes will be held under this proc. If I do proc here, all the running processes here, like, all the running process ID will be seen here. If I do ps-ef grep smount, I have this devdb running here, and it has a ID 15715. Right now I'm inside this proc here. If I do ls-l and then this proc here, right? Where is that one? This is ID, and then the respective directory, and then I can see all the files over here. This is the process ID for my database, right? Like database 15715. If I do ls-l 15715, that's the directory. Where is that one? I can show it here. 15715. Okay, here 15715. That's that directory will get created. The moment I kill this directory, kill this process here, and then this directory will be cleared. Where that one? Okay, this directory will be cleared. Running processes, everything you can see it in this proc. The proc is a dynamic directory here. So these are like running directories here. These are like running processes here. The moment I kill that process, the directory will be get cleared here. That is your proc. Contains the virtual file system describing the process information as a file. Whatever the process you are running it in your database, all those processes will be like resides here. SBin, again, the bin is a binary executable. SBin is again your system binary executable. It's for system binaries. And then root is like your root for root user, home directory for your root users. And then remaining things like we're not using this SRV much. Syslog, which contains your sys configuration file. Temp is for temporary file system, which is like, everyone has access on that. Temporarily, if you want to store any file system or for temporary purpose, you can use this temp file system. Everyone can have access on the temp. And then regularly this temp directory will be cleared automatically by your OS. Automatically this temp directory will be like cleared. You should not keep anything inside your temp directory. Again, user is for user executables. Var is for your all the log files. All the log files you can see it in the var. Swap is for your swap partitions. If you're configured with your swap, probably like swap will be used. If you're running out of your memory on that server, swap will be used. So these are like your different file system which is available inside your Linux server. Any questions on this one? Again, like nothing to do with as a DBA, because we are not going to manage any of this. Everything will be like managed by your Linux admin. But we should be aware that what are the Linux partition structure works, and then in which all scenarios we're going to use this. Right. And then one more topic we can cover it here quickly. Do I have the file system here? Dev LLST star. I don't have any file system here. Fine. If you want to mount, right, for example, your Linux admin pretty much, you want one mount point here. You want one mount point called Vara data. If you ask your Linux admin, I want to mount one mount point. I want one mount point here called Vara data with 10 GB. I want to install the new database here on this server. You have to request your Linux admin. Your Linux admin will mount that Vara data mount point here. how he's going to mount it? He's going to add some disk here. Right now I have only one disk here, SDA, that's a default OS disk. He is going to attach one disk to this server, and then that server will come inside your dev. That will be like SDB, it'll come it as a SDB. I don't have that OS here now, like, if I could have added here. If we add it, it'll come it as a separate mount point here. If I go here, like it'll come it as a SDB inside your dev. It'll come it as a SDB. Right now, SDA is the only disk is available. If I do df-h, SDA is the one which I used it for dev SDA. I use it for my boot and then OS partition here. I use that SDA, the disk, for my OS operation. If I add one more disk, I'll commit as a SDB. And if I add one more disk, it will commit as a SDC. Those are like dynamic disk will be like get appended here. And then you can use this fdisk command. If I do fdisk-l here, right now you can see that only one disk is available. Right now, if I do this fdisk-l, I have this dev SDA, which is of 100 GB. And then I have formatted this SDA with SDA1 and SDA2. SDA1 is for my root partition. That's my boot partition. SDA1, if you see like dev, SDA1 is for my boot partition 1 GB. And then remaining SDA2 is used for my root partition. And then if I add one more disk, I'll get a SDB, and then I can format it like fdisk dev SDB, and then I can mount that whatever the new mount point here. Like, quickly I can probably see, I can show it here. I have that. Give me a second here. Okay, got it. These are like, OS concept what I'm covering here, but pretty much we're not doing it in day-to-day task. The DBA. If I do LLST star here, right now I have only SDA. I'm just going to add it one drive at the back end. Let's see. This is what Oracle Lab 1. Okay, Oracle Lab 1. I'm just going to add it just 1 GB disk. I just added one disk here. Now, if I do LL, I added it at the back end. It came here, not yet. Okay, no. Give me a second here. Yeah, let's see. Right, so I just added here. If I check it out, you can see now you got SDB. We had earlier only SDA. Now I just added one disk at the backend. Again, it is the Linux admin or your storage admin who is going to add this disk to your servers, and then how they will mount it. I got this SDB disk now here. If I run the same command fdisk-l, which will give you that SDB details. You can see dev SDB, that is 1 GB disk. Now you added 1 GB disk here, and then you can format that disk now. Now you can pretty much use this command here, fdisk dev SDB. Fdisk dev SDB. So the moment you format, it will ask a command. You want to format. I want to format. N is for new. And then I want to select as a primary partition. Just a P is a primary. And I'll go with the default partition, default first sector, default last sector, and then W is for save. Done. So you have formatted now. You can run the same command fdisk-l now. You can see your SDB. You formatted as the SDB1 here. SDB you formatted as the SDB1. So now you can mount this formatted disk as a VARA data mount point. You can do this one, right? You can format whatever that mount point you formatted here. You can just run this one. You can format it as a file system. This file system, you can define it based upon your size of your, you can format using ext2, ext3, ext4, GFS, XFS, whatever the file system you want, you can format it. I'll just format just as ext3 now. mkfs -t ext3 and then dev stb. Right, you can say, do you want to proceed anyway? Yes, I can proceed. Right, so you have formatted now. Whatever that file system you formatted with that mkfs file system ext3, and then now we can mount that one. I can create one directory called VARA archive or VARA data. I can create it as a VARA data. VARA data, and then I can give full permission on that. chmod 777, and then I can mount it like that. Mount that SDB 1 GB disk. I can mount it as a VARA data mount point. Mount dev VARA data. Right, so you have mounted now. If I do df-h here now, I can see that VARA data mount point here, which is 1 GB, which is like dev SDB. So this is how your Linux admin will do. The moment as a DBA we ask any storage or any mount point, they will add a disk to that OS, that VM, and they will do all the format, and they will do this mount. But this mount point, whatever you mounted, is a temporary mount point now. If this VM rebooted, this mount point will be gone. How to make it a permanent mount point? You have to add it to your FS tab. The moment you add it to FS tab, the moment you reboot your server, the server comes back online. It will first read your FS tab and automatically mount all the mount points, whatever mentioned in the FS tab. That's where we need to always add into FS tab. So I'll just copy it here. So this is now our SDB, and then I will be mounting it into my VARA data. It will be like ext3 file system default one. Like now I can add it here inside my FS tab. I'll just copy this single line here, and then I'll add it at the end. I'll just add it here. SDB VARA data. It's a ext3 file system. And then you can do, you can unmount this one right now. Unmount. Umount, then the mount point is gone now. Do df-h, gone, that mount point is gone. Now you can simply do mount -a, line number entry, mount -a. So some line number 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, this is our mount point only. Okay, maybe some extra space. Tab. ext3. Tab. Use a tab. While copying paste, it will put some extra lines. or 1 I think it's fine. Just WQ and then do mount -a. Right, now it is fine. Now it is working fine. So just do df-h now. You can see your mount point here. So this is like making you a permanent, that mount point, whatever they added, they will add it into FS tab entry. So that that mount point will be like permanent. The moment this VM goes for reboot, once it back online, automatically that mount point will be like mounted by reading this FS tab. Right. So yeah, that's pretty much the last concept is your M repository. In case of if you want to install any RPM inside your server, you have a M repository. You have to use that M repo, and then you can install any RPM. For example, telnet is RPM. M install telnet. What it says? Telnet is already installed. Okay, so I can verify RPM-QA grep telnet. So RPM-QA grep telnet, which will tell you whether that RPM is installed or not. In order to remove that RPM, you can use RPM-E and then use that whatever the output you got it using this RPM-QA. That will remove that RPM. Now you can verify using this RPM command. You don't see that RPM here. And then now we can use that M install telnet. M install telnet. It will connect to your M repository, and then it will download it. Connected to your M repository, and then it found that telnet RPM, and then total download is 64K, and then install size is 11K. Do you want to proceed? Do you want to install the telnet? And this is a version. So just need to do this M install. You can do this M install telnet, any RPM you want to install. Just say yes. It will install RPM for you. It says it's unable to connect your M repository. So there's a folder called etc m.repo.d, and then inside that you have your all the M repositories here. Whatever that M repository is configured, you can see it over here. So it will download from this M repository, and then it will install that particular RPM here. You have to properly configure your M repository here in order to proceed with your any installation. So that setup is here. Like if you open this particular MOS Oracle notes here. So how to set up your M repository? So you can create one M repository here and then put this content. It'll do it for you. Like for example, if I do mkdir, I'll do bkp. I'll move all of them. Move everything into bkp. Right now, I don't have any repository here. Like you can simply do m repo list. The moment m repo list, if you do, it will tell you okay. ps-ef grep m. There's a one. Okay, nothing. So m repo list, but nothing is here. Like you can say repo list is nothing here. You don't have any m repo list. Like right now, as per this document here, like just create your UL7 repo here and then put this content here. I'm just going to do vi and then put this content here. Right. So now you can do m repo list, and then you got one repo list here. How you got your repo list? Because you created this repo list. You created this repo. Earlier when I did a m repo list, it was saying no repos, 0 repos. Now we created this repo list here as per this suggestion here, and then now we got one repo list here. Like the moment I do m repo list, I got this one. Now you can do m install telnet. So it's gonna connect to your repo, and then it will download it here. And then this has some package dependencies, so it's not getting this proper packages here. So let's go back here and then search it. This is trying to search it from here. Let's open that one. Get package, no package here.
Hi, Malik.
Yep.
Repository represent for storing the RPMs. How? It is only for storage purpose.
No, this is M repo means it is a connectivity to your public URL. It is not download locally. This is the repository where the moment you do yum install any command, it will go to this particular repo, and then inside that repo you have do this cat. You have this URL here. It will connect to this public URL and it will download that RPM from that public URL, and then it will install here. So that's a repo meaning. Repo meaning the connectivity from your Oracle host to your public M repository. It will not locally download it. Right. So this is your, if you one prerequisite is your Oracle host should have a public internet access. If you don't have internet access, your M repo list will not work. This M command will not work. I'll just copy it here. I'll just take wait. CP BKP. I'll take one more repo here. VL7 repo. I'll remove this one. Right, so it's again still not connecting. All right, let's copy this in CP, PKP. So these are old repos, like, not properly configured. I need to remove them. Sorry. Let's see, this is valid one. S. No, get repo curl command could not resolve the host name m.oracle.com. Right. Anyway, like I will fix it. We'll check it out. This is what happens, like, the moment you do M install any RPM, it will connect to your public M repository, and then it will download that and it will install it for you. And then if you, like, most of the scenarios, like your Oracle host will not be exposed to public internet, right? Most of the time it will be like firewall and security concerns. In that case, what you need to do manually, you need to install that RPM using this rpm-ivh command. So how you're going to do that one? You have to go here and you have to download that. Like, manually you have to go to Oracle m.oracle.com repo, Oracle Linux VL7 and latest x86 64, and you have to download download that required RPM. This is a required RPM, like, telnet is a RPM what we're installing it here. You need to download that RPM manually into your local system. I'll just download it to temp here, and you have to use this Winscp and then copy that to your host. I'll use that my Linux host here, ifconfig. I'll copy this host ID, paste it here, and then I'll put root user. I'll enter the password. It'll connect between your Windows and your right. So it will connect between your Windows and your Linux server here. So now I'll go to my desktop. I downloaded inside temp here. Where is the temp? Okay, temp. And then this is your telnet RPM what you downloaded. Just copy it over here. Drag and drop it here. It'll copy it over here. You can see you got your telnet RPM here. Now go back here. ls-ltr. Now you got your RPM here. So manually you have to copy one RPM by locally downloading it to your laptop using Winscp. You have to copy it to your server, and then you can use this pretty much RPM command, rpm-ivh, and then that RPM name, rpm-ivh, and then that RPM name. So it's going to install it, installing your RPM. It's installed here. Verify RPM hyphen QA pipeline grep telnet. You see your telnet RPM got installed here. Now we want to remove that one. RPM hyphen E is to remove RPM hyphen E. Then enter that one. Now you are removed your RPM. Again, verify it will not be there. So this is kind of a installation of your RPM into your Linux. Instead of I is for installation, U is for upgrade. Like if you use RPM hyphen UVH and then your RPM name. So it'll upgrade. For example, if I go here, you have this RPM version. Where is that one? Right now I installed this. Which one I installed? 64 I installed. Now you have latest RPM is 66 here. I'll download this one and then go back here. I got the 66 is the latest one. I'll copy it. I'll transfer it over here. Now if I go back here, now you can see 64 and 66. If I do this RPM QA grep, I got 64 here installed one, and then I want to upgrade it. I got this 66, the latest one. I can use this RPM UVH instead of removing. I can directly use this RPM UVH and then the latest RPM. So it will remove that old one, removing that 64, and then it will install this 66. Automatically it will do it for you. You no need to remove it manually. You can see now it got latest 166. This is like manual installation. If you don't have M repository, you have to manually download the RPM, record RPM, use a Winscp to copy from your Windows to Linux. Once you copy it to your Linux server here, you can manually use RPM hyphen UVH or IVH. Or if you want to remove the RPM, you can use RPM hyphen E to remove that. If you want to verify whether RPM installed or not, you can use this RPM hyphen QA grep that particular RPM name. Right, so that's pretty much about what I wanted to cover. Any questions here before we wind up? So pretty much I'm done with what I wanted to cover for today. If any questions so far, whatever we covered, or anything related to questions, queries, or course content, or any doubts, or anything we can discuss, or else we can stop it here for today. And then tomorrow we'll connect. Tomorrow we'll see some of the networking concept and some of the basics of Linux, and then some of the basics of our databases. All right, guys. If no questions, then we'll wind up for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Malik.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks.